Okay, welcome back. In the previous film, I explained the last verses in the Toledoton of Man or Mankind, chapter 6, verse 1 to 8. Now I will turn to the flood story, Noah's Toledot. And in this first film, I will, among other questions, answer: is there two flood stories, complete flood stories, in this one flood story which we find in the Bible? If you read what the documentary hypothesis says, we can have Spicer as an example. Beyond reasonable doubt, a composite narrative. Beyond reasonable doubt. So he means, let's see what they mean. This is actually a crucial test. According to the documentary hypothesis, there are two versions of the primeval history in the Bible, in the first 11 chapters. One J and one P. To be able to say that, you of course have to find two versions of the flood story. So this is very, very important. And when you read what researchers like Westerman or von Rad says, it's very clear. They say there are two complete or almost complete flood stories in the Bible, which have been combined. They also says, for instance, Gunkel, Skinner, Spicer, that the editor, he wanted as much as possible say ipsissima verba, word for word, what is said in both sources. And he didn't want to sacrifice not the tiniest information that could be used in the story. And this is why they consider there to be many doublets, many unnecessary doublets and contradictions, because the editor really wanted to keep the information he found in two diverging, partly contradicting versions of the flood story. Why he wanted to do that? Nobody knows. But this is the theory. Also, in this millennia, 2012, notice the year, Baden says that you really can still see the sources. You can take them out separately, and both have, it's a continuous flood story in both. And more importantly, or as important, both of them show the distinct features according what is to be expected from each source. So you can recognize the style of P fragments or P parts, and J in J. What is considered to be J. So I will actually answer one of these questions very short. Please, if you can read Swedish, please make use of the material I have on www.torejungerstam.com. There you find very detailed analysis of, is there really two complete flood stories? Here I will answer it very shortly. Maybe I think I will do later on another film where I also explain this in greater detail. But in this presentation I have a very short answer, and the answer is very, very clear. No, there isn't. There are not two complete flood stories found in the Bible. This is it's important also that there are other flood stories that can be compared with the Bible, with certain components that you expect to find or should find in a flood story. And that makes the answer even more easy. There are not. Even though you can read researchers like Baden, for instance, tell there are 2 complete flood stories. It is simply not true. If you compare what is described to be P and J, you see here that J is about half of P, or 60% to be more exact. So it's much shorter. And in J, for instance, there is not a word about the arc, how to make it, how to construct it. That is something which is found in every other flood story and very important for the whole story. Also, when the Lord says, in 7 days I will let it rain on earth, before that any flood isn't mentioned in J at all. So it's very, very clear that the J portion is missing so important things as instruction for the ark. It is not complete, that's for sure. Also, P isn't complete, but of course it's almost double the length of J, so there is not as much as important thing missing in P. But also there are important things if you compare it with other flood stories. But look at this, for instance. The water is rising in the sections that are ascribed to J. And you have here water is rising, then the ark is lifted up from the ground, and then all the mountains are covered. Then after that the water starts to decline, return. So first you find that the water is sinking, declining. It corresponds to the water is rising. Then the ark at Ararat, it touches ground again. And of course you find they say ark is lifted up, ark is coming down again. And then the mountaintops are being visible. Correspondence, of course, to all the mountains are covered. This is a very clear parallelism at this ABC, like this ABC, ABC, very clearly. So here you also see in this small detail, it's complete if you have both J and P. If you take away one source, it's not complete anymore. And here it's very, very clear that they belong together. And if you take away one of them, yeah, you have something missing. So my conclusion is that J and P together, there is a complete flood story. But if you take away J or P, you have 2 incomplete stories. It's very clear. Please look at my book about the subject if you want to know more details, if you know Swedish. I hope to make it in English, but it will not happen in a few weeks. But still, can it be in the background still 2 different stories combined by a clumsy editor? That I will answer in the next film, but for now I stop here and return. In the next film I return to talk about this. So you're welcome back when you feel for it.